What's going on, everyone? Welcome on into a live Cleveland Browns report. Appreciate everyone for taking time out of their Tuesday to come hang out with me here as we touch on all things Browns, latest news, rumors, free agency buzz. A lot to talk about as we are 2.5, 3 weeks-ish away from NFL free agency kicking off. But before then, I think something that gets slept on is the NFL Combine. Because, the NFL Combine maybe not move the needle a ton for your average Joe when it comes to draft evaluations, but something that is very important that does not get discussed enough from the Combine is all the head coaches and GMs getting together. That's when a lot of deals are worked out before free agency happens 2 weeks later. So we're going to have everything for you coming out of Indianapolis next week. But let's start the show off by getting you guys involved in the chat right now. What's your confidence level in Nick Chubb returning? Just returning to play for the Cleveland Browns. Forget how he's going to look, how he's going to play. Just how confident are you Nick Chubb is going to be on the Browns 2024 roster? Scale of 1 to 10. 1 being there's no way in hell. 10 being it's a fact. You put your entire mortgage on it. Let me know. I'm at a 9. Right? I'm not at a 10 because I do think there is some sliver of a chance that I don't want to see happen, but I'd be naive if I acted like there's no chance whatsoever. I do think when you factor in the age, the injury, and the contract, that's worth a sliver. But Nick Chubb is different. He is so important to this team, to this city, to this locker room. If it was another player on another team, they'd probably move on. But not Nicholas Jamal Chubb. I'm at a 9. Christopher's at a 9. Ty Man's at a 10. Ryan's at an 8.5. Dominic is at an 8. Tim's at a 1. Tim, no. You can't be at a 1.2. Let's see. I got Jake from a 5 to a 6. Jacob Smith is at a 10. Jacob Kistner, that he comes back, 8.8. That he is still great, 3.9. Yeah. The way Nick Chubb looks when he comes back, that's, I wouldn't even say a separate conversation, because if you don't think he's going to look good, then that's got to factor into the decision of whether or not you bring him back. But I'm willing to bet that Nick Chubb, the guy who squats like 900 pounds, is probably kicking this rehab's ass right now. So what's your confidence level? Let me know in the comment section. Get in the chat. While the audience builds up, I'm going to tell you all about our sponsor today, which is Game Time. So shout out to Game Time for keeping the lights on for our live show today. Now, Game Time is the place to get the best seats at the lowest price at the last minute. It's got the lowest price guaranteed, which is awesome. But on top of that, they are giving the Dog Pound $20 off when you download the Game Time app and use code BROWNSCHAT. So as the NBA All-Star break comes to an end soon, if you want to go catch a Cavs game, one of the hottest, if not the hottest team in the association, if you are getting ready for Guardians spring training or just Guardians baseball in general, we got you covered on Game Time. Or if you want to go see a concert, they've got comedy shows, musicals, anything that needs a ticket, Game Time will have you covered. So download the Game Time app and redeem code BROWNSCHAT for $20 off your first purchase. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. So shout out to Game Time for supporting the Cleveland Browns report. Now, while the audience builds up, before we get into the first segment, you guys know what I'm going to ask next. Shout out your city. Let me know where you are tuning in from. Everyone loves talking about themselves. Before I got, not this job, but my first job out of college, I remember talking to my dad about, hey, some good interview tips, please. And he's like, always end the interview by asking the interviewee, or the interviewer, I should say, something about themselves, because everyone loves talking about themselves. And then they leave that interview feeling pretty good about that candidate, because they're like, I like that guy. I got to talk about myself instead of listening to them talk about themselves for the whole time. Shout out your city.
That's some really good professional advice.
It is.
Ty Man, you should take note of that in future.
Ty Man's going to be working at Chat Sports soon.
Yeah, he honestly, he already works here.
Ty Man's definitely going to be working here.
Unpaid intern.
Browns are good as in Dayton. I got Dominic in Ohio. I got Jake in Sacramento. Ryan's in Dayton as well. Let's see. I got Christopher in Ohio. I got Newport Beach here in the house. Josh, I'm sorry to hear that here with COVID in Southeast Michigan. Josh, I hope you're feeling better, buddy. Jacob is in Cleveland. Let me know. Mully's in Youngstown. I've got Canton, Ohio. I've got Toledo from Jacob. Josh is in Michigan. James in Ohio. Jared's in South Carolina. Who lives the furthest from Cleveland, Ohio? Right now, that's going to the Quags with Newport Beach, California. Who lives the furthest? Oh, we have Riverside. I think, oh, that's very close. We're talking about a difference like 5 miles there. Riverside's definitely up there. Who lives the furthest? I'm thinking it's one of the 2 Californians, unless we have someone across the pond tuning in right now. So, while you're shouting out your city, let me tell you about the third portion of our live show today, which is a mailbag. So, if you have any questions for yours truly you want to ask about the Cleveland Browns 2024 season, free agency, trades, anything under the sun, hashtag Browns in the chat, or you can super chat if you want to support the show and guarantee your question gets on screen. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Super chats are always greatly appreciated. In fact, speaking of super chats, here is our super chat menu today. $2 super chat, you get a shout out, you get on screen for everyone to see. $5 super chat, the off-season MVP poster, which I hold proudly right here, that currently holds the names of Jeremy Stallman and Tim Green. Boom, bam. Browns football, baby. So this is our off-season MVP poster. We'll keep this thing going all off-season long. $10, we are doing a Nick Chubb signed helmet giveaway at the end of the month. So after today, we only have 1 more live show on a Tuesday in the month of February. So we will do this giveaway at the end of February, which will be next week. So almost last call, if you will. And then $50. Trace, I forgot my football. Let me just slack. Okay. Yeah. And speaking of $10, Tim Green with a $10 super chat. I forgot my Browns report football on my desk. So we're timing Trace right now. 5, 4, 3, 2. My desk is not that close. 1, half, third, quarter. There it is. Thank you very much. Got a Browns report football. So I'll sign it, and then we'll mail it to the winner, similar to the Nick Chubb signed helmet, which we're going to do at the end of the month. So next Tuesday is the last show in the month of February. And here's our autographed Nick Chubb signed helmet. We got a super chat from Tim Green, Mr. Gerard. If we could throw that on screen really quickly. And then I actually snuck something in the graphics at the bottom. Okay, and we'll go to that next then. Tim Green, what's going on, buddy? Matt, love number 24, hence the ticket raffle. The 1.2 was a reference to free agent signing until Chubb returns. Put me on for another ticket and go Browns. All right, that clears things up a little more. I get that. Now, speaking of the Nick Chubb signed helmet, there should be a Nick Chubb helmet one right below it, that one. So Tim Green came in today with 4, battling Tim Green III, his son. So we have a little Tim Green battle going on right now. That's actually awesome. So Tim Green, I think it's the first, but I guess I never asked if it was the first or the second, is up to 5. So if you want to be in this Nick Chubb signed mini helmet raffle, $10 super chat will get you entered to it. And then for the signed football, it's a $50 donation, greatly appreciated. Jeremy Stallman currently in the mix for that, so you can join Jeremy Stallman. We'll put that on screen for you guys here in just a moment, and you'll be coming home with quite the unique addition potentially for your Browns man cave. All right, so that is our super chat menu. Enough about me. Speaking of, interview tips, Mr. Gerard, what do we have on tap today? Because I already forgot my own show. We've got a fun show. No, we do have a fun show. We got the latest news and rumors, as always, and then that's what I was talking about: free agent running back targets. So we do have to acknowledge not just the possibility of Nick Chubb not returning, which I think is very slim, but the very real possibility that Chubb is going to miss some time in 2024. And am I the only one thinking I'm not really eager to see Jerome Ford be the bell cow back for the first 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks until Chubb is healthy? I think the Browns should bring someone in no matter what. So we'll talk about that in just a second here. We do have a $10 super chat from Ryan Chowdhury. What's going on, Ryan? Mike Evans, no matter what. The Bucs aren't signing him. Well, I shouldn't say it as a fact. It appears the Bucs are not going to re-sign him, which just seems like a big mistake. Like, he has been... I think Mike Evans is the greatest player in Tampa Bay Buccaneers history. I know that you had Tom Brady, but like when you think about like, you know, a guy being there for a few seasons versus a guy being there for 10 years, you got to factor in some longevity. Like it's kind of like LeBron. Is LeBron the greatest player in Heat history? I think Dwayne Wade gets that more because he was there forever.
Here's my other thing. Like, in terms of greats for the Bucks, Rondé Barber.
Yeah.
Maybe Mike Alstott. Great.
Keyshawn Johnson.
Keyshawn Johnson. Like, there's some good ones, but I can't think of a better one than Mike.
They have the worst win percentage in NFL history.
Do they really?
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
And they have 2 Super Bowls, which is kind of crazy.
That is actually pretty interesting.
Yeah, they are as bad as it comes. But Ryan, to really answer your question, I guess, is Mike Evans no matter what? Dude, I'm in. You tell me Mike Evans and Amari Cooper on this team, like, that's the kind of stuff that you look back at and you go, how did the Browns win that Super Bowl that year? Like, oh, yeah, they had an absurd amount of talent. They had Nick Chubb coming back, hopefully healthy, Amari Cooper, David Njoku, Mike Evans, wide receiver / tight end, Deshaun Watson, and an awesome defense. All right, so that's what we got coming up on today's show. Are we ready to jump into a live Cleveland Browns report? We only have 17 likes. Can we get ourselves to 25 likes? Can we pick up 8 more likes? If you have not liked the video yet, make sure you do so. That way YouTube knows, like, all right, this stream is kind of popular with Browns fans. Other people looking for Cleveland Browns content, we should recommend this live stream to them. And that way the channel gets bigger and, well, it's a beautiful circle of life after that. So if you have not liked the video yet, I please ask that you go ahead and do so. And just like that, we're at 26 likes. All right, let's jump into a live Cleveland Browns report. Welcome on into a live Cleveland Browns report video, which was filmed during our live show every single Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. So make sure to tune in next Tuesday if you missed this past live show. But we're going to talk about the latest news and rumors on this edition. And let's start by talking about a sensitive subject, Nick Chubb. The Browns cutting Nick Chubb. I'm going to give this one Bernie head. We usually are Bernie heads as a scale of believability. I do think it's a slight step above 0 Bernie heads, which is fake news, but I don't think it has a very high chance at all. Now, the reason why we're talking about this is because Zach Jackson from The Athletic, he included Nick Chubb as a potential cut candidate, if you will, and here's what he said. The Browns want to keep Chubb and hope he can be an effective fourth quarter closer for them in the back half of next season. Browns GM Andrew Berry has said conversations about restructuring are coming and thought a healthy Chubb has been maybe the league's best running back. The Browns need to smartly account for every penny on their salary cap now and into the foreseeable future. Chubb probably will be back, but this is a delicate and potentially complicated situation. And my reaction when Zach Jackson wrote is, that's spot on, especially the last part of like, Chubb's probably going to be back. But I don't think we should just stick our heads in the sand and act like there's no possible way Nick Chubb returns. Or doesn't return, I should say. I think Nick Chubb is a player worth betting on in terms of attacking his rehab, kicking it in the ass, and coming back as close as he possibly can to the player he was before that knee injury. But there is, as I've been calling it for over a month now, a Bermuda Triangle of death here for running backs. The age, knee injury, big contract. That's usually when teams look to completely jump ship from that player. But Nick Chubb is different. He is the heart and soul of the Cleveland Browns. He has been a huge leader and a huge part of this team ever since he was drafted almost half a decade ago at this point, over half a decade ago now. This is a spot-on take, though, from Zach Jackson about it being a delicate situation because there are some things Andrew Berry and Nick Chubb and his agent are going to have to work through. When you look at the finances behind Chubb's contract, if the Browns were to release him before June 1st, they could save nearly $12 million. That's a lot of cap savings. And if this was a running back on another team that wasn't so important to their DNA and what they've done and how instrumental Nick Chubb has been for this franchise's turnaround, they'd probably move on from him. But it's Nick Chubb. Like throw the numbers out for a moment. We're talking about Nicholas Jamal Chubb. They're not going to move on from him. They're going to find a way. The only reason I think there is a tiny % chance of Nick Chubb not returning is if the Browns get bad word about how his rehab is going and there is no progress on some sort of restructuring a contract. I'm not talking restructuring like push money to the end of the can. I'm talking like a pay cut, which I wouldn't blame Nick Chubb if he said, I don't want to take a pay cut. I've done so much for this team. But I could also see why the Browns go, listen, we don't want to move on from you, but we can't have a near $16 million cap hit for a running back who's 28 years old coming off a major knee injury. So if the two sides are unable to work through that and the rehab's not going well, maybe that's where we see a very small chance the Browns move on from Nick Chubb. But I don't think that's going to happen. No one wants to see Chubb go, right? Andrew Berry said several times during his press conference at the end of the season that they do not want to see that carry in Pittsburgh be the last carry Nick Chubb has as a Cleveland Brown. But ultimately, this is a business, and there has to be a certain, emotion element that gets put to the side. And if the Browns and Chubb can't get over that emotional element, and ultimately business is business, maybe the Browns decide we're going to go a different direction. But I don't believe that's going to. I don't think it's going to get to that point. My prediction is Nick Chubb takes a pay cut. I think that is probably what's going to end up happening here because he knows he's not going to have a huge market elsewhere. I would believe he wants to stay in Cleveland. And so this is probably the best opportunity. And by pay cut, it might just be like, hey, we're going to give you a bunch of guaranteed money for this season, a big signing bonus. It might not be everything you were going to get, but we're not talking a dramatic cut your pay in half type of cut. But when you look at what Nick Chubb's done over the last 4 years, like, this is why he is a player worth betting on. We're talking about 5 straight seasons of averaging over 5 yards a carry. I think people take that for granted because in this day and age, everyone just wants to hop on the bandwagon of you don't need a good running back. Don't pay running backs. Don't draft him early. Nick Chubb was a second-round pick that's been worth every single dollar the Browns have put into him. When running backs are that good, they're worth an early draft pick. They are worth that type of contract. And for all the teams and people that say, like, well, look what the Chiefs have done with Isaiah Pacheco, a 7th rounder, and all these really low-paying running backs that have won Super Bowls the last 10 years. Yeah, they've also had Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady as their quarterback for most of them. Not everyone has a Patrick Mahomes or a Tom Brady. And if you don't, you got to find some other weapons, like the running back position. So I'm all for the investment in the ground game for the Browns. This is not going to be a bad bet in my eyes. It's also not a good draft to find a new running back. Like, if you plan on moving on from Nick Chubb, it better be because you've got a great replacement plan in place. You shouldn't move on from Nick Chubb and go, all right, let's start from ground zero. Let's find our next starting running back. No, that would be a very bad plan, especially when you look at the running backs entering this year's draft. Like, I don't have a good beat on who the number 1 back is. Kind of go with Blake Corum because of how productive he was at Michigan. But I really like the fella out of Notre Dame. Trey Benson out of Florida State. He didn't get a ton of usage, so he doesn't have a ton of tread on his tires. Jonathan Brooks is supposed to be the best back, but at the same time, like, he's coming off a knee injury as well. There are some flags all over this running back class, and none of them are going to go round 1. And there's even a chance none of them go round 2, believe it or not. So before we get on to the rest of today's show, I do want to get your opinion on this one. What's your confidence level in Nick Chubb returning for 2024? Ignore how he looks or when he comes back. Just, is he going to be on the Browns 2024 roster? I would put it, scale of 1 to 10, at a 9. Let's move on to our second rumor today, which is the 2024 NFL salary cap. Will it be $250 million? I'm going to give this one 2 Bernie heads. I'm kind of right in the middle. And I'm going to tell you why this is extremely important to the Cleveland Browns and why you need to know about this in just a moment. But first, let me tell you about our sponsor today, which is Game Time. If you are looking to go catch a local sporting event, a concert, a comedy show, or anything else, get started with Game Time because what they are doing for Browns fans is giving you guys $20 off when you download the Game Time app and redeem code Browns chat. So if you want to go see a Cavs game, a Guardians game coming up soon, any concert in your area, make sure you use Game Time because, like I said, they're going to give you $20 off. I know that not everyone lives the same way I do. I like to plan in advance, but not everyone does. So if you are a last-minute type of person, Game Time is your best friend because they're going to have deals on tickets even an hour after the event starts. So download Game Time today, and remember, use code BROWNSCHAT for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. So our good friend Mike Florio, he did have a pretty noteworthy scoop that I wanted to share with you guys because he tweeted out the 2024 salary cap is coming. Some are expecting it to be in the range of $242 million to $243 million per team. At least one source said in response to that, more. Now, this snippet from Florio's article I thought was very interesting. He wrote, another source with a proven record of accuracy in these matters says it will be closer to $250 million than to $243 million. If you're like a little bit out of your comfort zone and feel like a fish out of water talking about the NFL salary cap, let me make this as simple as possible for you. The more, the better. We want the highest salary cap possible for the Cleveland Browns because the Browns have an ownership group that is devoted to spending money. And so while a low salary cap might help some poor teams out like the Cincinnati Bengals, that way the big ballers of the NFL with rich owners don't go out and buy all the players. The Browns, they've got an ownership committed to spending cash, right? Guaranteed money. And so a higher salary cap is great for them. And then you tack on the fact that the Browns are currently $19.6 million over the expected salary cap. We still don't know for a fact what the salary cap is going to be for 2024. But it's expected to be $242 million. And that's where we get this 19.6 from. It's 19.6 million over 242. However, if the salary cap were to go up to $250 million, you could subtract $8 million from this projected salary cap, and all of a sudden the Browns are more like $11 to $12 million over the salary cap, which means they are that much closer to getting below the salary cap, and they are basically getting $8 million to spend on another starter if they really wanted to. Now, in a previous video of mine, and you can go check it out, I came out with 5 cap-saving moves. Trim the fat. There's some guys that you could just move on from, like Jordan Akins, for example, and save a little chunk of change. But you can restructure Deshaun Watson's contract for $33 million. You can extend Amari Cooper, get a new contract for Nick Chubb, restructure Denzel Ward's contract. And if you do all that stuff, we're talking $60 million in cap space if the salary cap is $250 million. You want Mike Evans, and Mike Evans wants $30 million a season, $60 million, take half of it out, you still have $30 million to spend. So the more, the better. Hope and pray that the salary cap is closer to $250 million because every single $1 million it goes up by, that is a little bit less the Browns are over the projected salary cap, and it's more money they can spend in free agency. Now, when we look at the history of the NFL salary cap, you can see that it's got a pretty routine increment of increase, like 6%, 5%. And then COVID happens, and then they make up for COVID by doubling it by 14%, and then back to about an 8% raise here. And so that's where we get to tack on an extra 7 to 8%, and you're right around $242 million. So why would they go from the usual increase of 7 to 8% to would be about a 10, 11% increase? The NFL made a shit ton of money this past season from their deals with Amazon, Peacock, Taylor Swift, for crying out loud. Like, they made a lot of money. So they could look to spend, put the salary cap at $250 million. Let's move on to our third and final story today, which is, are the Browns trading Amari Cooper? I saved the worst for last. Fake news. People are always going to get so mad at me in the comment section. I am in complete agreement with you. The Browns should not trade away Amari Cooper. So why are we talking about this? Because I came across a Bleacher Report article that had one dream trade scenario for all 32 teams. And they happened to have Amari Cooper going to the New England Patriots on this. So I figured let's just kind of nip this in the bud right now and talk about the chance the Browns trade Amari Cooper, which is not even one burn yet. It's fake news. Amari Cooper, by the way, there is some truth to the salary cap implications. I mean, he's got a cap hit of $23.7 million for 2024. If they were to move on from him, dead cap hit of $11.3 million and a cap savings of $12.4 million. So the Browns could save $12.4 million, which is a good chunk of change. But you don't trade away good players when you are an 11-win team coming off a postseason berth. You are looking to maximize your window. And you do that by holding on to players like Amari Cooper, who you could say are coming off the best years of their NFL career, right? Amari Cooper in 2022 to 2023 with the Cleveland Browns versus what he did in 2020 and 2021 with the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, more targets, but fewer receptions and far more yards, much better average, and one more touchdown. I mean, you can make a real argument that Amari Cooper, the best 2 years of his NFL career have been the last 2 years. And he had a great career with the Raiders and with the Cowboys before coming to Cleveland. So I've got no fear that Amari Cooper is going to fall off a cliff and have a major regression type of year, and the Browns are going to get out early before that big drop-off happens. I think there is a 0% chance Cooper's traded. Not 1%, not even like Nick Chubb where there's a 2 to 3% chance the Browns ultimately move on from him for one reason or another. No, there is a 0% chance Amari Cooper is traded. And if he's traded, I'm doing a polar plunge in Lake Erie. Now, as for the Browns having to make some moves to get below the salary cap, they can do that without moving on from Amari Cooper. You restructure Deshaun Watson's contract, you free up over $30 million in cap space, and boom, you are below the salary cap just like that. You can also extend Amari Cooper because I think he is someone that's not showing any signs of slowing down. New contract for Nick Chubb. You can restructure Denzel Ward's contract. Restructure not as simple and as easy as people make it out to be. If you kick the can down the road and it kind of like balloons up at the end of their contract and you want to move on from that player at the end of their contract, you are stuck with a huge dead cap hit, which is basically money devoted to the salary cap for a player not on your team. But no, the Browns are not going to trade Amari Cooper. Now, it did get me thinking. Recent Browns wide receivers. Let's play a fun game here. Start, bench, cut. Amari Cooper, Josh Gordon, Jarvis Landry. You got to start one, you got to bench one, you got to cut one. Let me know down below in the comment section. I'm going to go start Amari Cooper. I want to go, my heart tells me Juice because he was so much more impactful than Josh Gordon, but like Josh Gordon will always have that 2013 season. I'm going to go start Amari Cooper, bench Jarvis Landry, cut Josh Gordon, but I could easily flip-flop these two. All right, that's going to do it for us on today's show, but let's wrap up by picking a card as we have Trizzy Trace in the studio today. Mr. Gerard, which card do you want to pick?
You know, I'm really liking the 4 of Hearts today.
4 of Hearts? I'm going to go for Amari Cooper, staying in Cleveland. No, for Nick Chubb, 2 + 4 is 6, 6 of diamonds.
I love it. I love it.
5 of spades. 5 of spades. All right, that is it for today's show. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Always appreciate people taking time out of their day to come hang out with us. We will sign off, and we will catch up with you later. Start, bench, cup. What are we thinking? Cool Guy says bench, Juice, cut Gordon, start Coop. When the Browns traded for Amari Cooper, I was excited about it because it cost you a day 3 pick. I don't know if anyone expected Amari Cooper after 2 years. I mean, maybe this is just my age showing, but to really come for the best Browns wide receiver in my lifetime. And unfortunately, it's not saying a whole lot because they've only had one wide receiver have back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, but still, I didn't think Amari Cooper would come to Cleveland and in 2 years and just 2 short seasons go, yeah, I'm the best Browns receiver in history. I know there is some longevity factor to it, but the last 2 years with Cooper, has there ever been a wide receiver that's had a better 2-year stretch? No. He's the only one with back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons for crying out loud. Josh was great. I get the Josh thing, but like, man, it was so inconsistent. And unfortunately, Josh Gordon was just 10 years too old. If he was
Josh Gordon had been in the NFL
now, it would be a very different story.
Yes.
But, nuh-uh. Okay. Super chat menu, though, for all of you watching right now, nearly 100 people tuned in. If you like what we're doing and you want to support the show, and you could also walk with a signed Nick Chubb helmet, $10 super chat gets you entered into that giveaway, which we're going to do at the end of the month, as Joshua Miller sends in a $5 super chat. $5 super chat gets you added to our MVP poster, and then $50 for the Browns Report football. Josh, what's going on, dude? So intrigued by the Bears situation. Take a franchise QB and reset the salary cap, or trade back twice, get that draft capital, and take Marvin Harrison Jr. It's definitely a very unique situation, because not very often do teams have the first overall pick when it wasn't their pick. You know what I mean? They just traded for it before. I don't even know if it's ever happened before. Like, it traded for the first overall pick the year before. You know what I mean? Not trading like the Panthers did last year to move up to number 1. But to have the first overall pick when you traded for someone else's first a year prior. I don't know if that's ever happened, but I feel like it hasn't.
It also feels like it's like the NBA style of the Bears are about to be able to start having 8 first-round picks over the next 10 years, you know.
It's definitely an intriguing situation, Josh. The way I look at it, you should not decide who you want your franchise QB to be based on the contract and the salary cap. It's so hard to find a good quarterback. If you really do believe Justin Fields is the guy, you should not move on from him so you can get younger at quarterback, right? All you're going to do is find yourself looking for a new quarterback in a couple of years if Caleb Williams is not the guy, but you go, but at least we got to reset the salary cap. Like, who cares? If Justin Fields is your guy, if you truly do believe he's better than Caleb Williams, then pay him. But if you don't think he's better than Caleb Williams, then that's just another big pro to the Caleb Williams side of, and on top of getting a potential better quarterback, you get to reset the salary cap. So I personally would go with Caleb Williams. I don't think you should pick Caleb Williams over Justin Fields because you get a cheaper contract on a easy, earlier on their rookie deal. But I just think Caleb Williams is going to be a better pro. That's why I'd go with Caleb Williams. Now, as for getting picks, that's awesome. When you've got a franchise player out there, I mean, could you imagine if the Cavs traded the first overall pick away and didn't take LeBron, but then they go, but look at all the picks we got. How many LeBrons come into the NBA draft? I know this is very premature, but like, I think Caleb Williams is going to be a superstar quarterback. They don't come around every single year. If you compare the last 10 first overall picks, they're not all franchise-changing players, right? If this was a draft with Trayvon Walker as the first overall pick, yeah, trade out of it probably. Get some picks. Be the Oklahoma City Thunder. But could you imagine being the team that traded away the first overall pick with a generational player in it? I can't pass on that. I cannot. Josh, I do have to add you to our MVP board, though. Joshua Miller. Hope you're feeling better, my friend. Okay. What do we have on tap for us next, Mr. Trace Gerard? Joshua Miller. The camouflage of the sticker is a bit unfortunate. That's okay. Joshua Miller added to our MVP offseason poster. $5 super chat gets you added. Appreciate you, Josh. Thank you very much. That's also true. Don't forget, PD, also because you have Amari Cooper's jersey. I do. And when you get someone's jersey, you're going to go to war for that guy if you ever get into a player debate, because the last thing you want to admit is you bought a jersey for a guy that's not going to be here very long. That is a tough pill to swallow. Okay. Are we ready to jump into the next segment? All right, here we go. We're at 47 likes. Can we get to 50 likes? Can we get 3 more likes? 3 of you watching, if you have not liked the video, go ahead and do so. The next segment is free agent running back targets, because I think there's a very, very, very real chance that Nick Chubb is not ready to begin the 2024 season. And I don't think the Browns should roll into that with Jerome Ford as their starting running back. So we are 2 likes away.
I think Tim Green brings up a good point about your LeBron thing.
What do you say?
Bronny Jr. is coming pretty soon. So here's what you could do if you're the Bears. Keep trading back until you can draft Tom Brady's son.
That's a long way to go. And Bronny Jr., let's be honest, if his last name isn't James, is anyone talking about him the way they're talking about him? I think a team's going to take him in round 2 just because they hope LeBron will come sign with them in free agency. All right, we're at 50 likes. There we go. Let's talk free agent running backs. Coming up on today's show, I want to run through 5 free agent running backs the Browns could explore in NFL free agency. Now, let me open up by saying this much. This is not me coming for Nick Chubb's job, but is a simple acknowledgement that I think is very, very likely, which is Nick Chubb underwent ACL surgery on November 14th, 2023. That puts him a year from returning in November 2024, far from week 1. So we at least need to acknowledge that even if you are on board 100% like I am that Nick Chubb is going to come back in 2024, there's a very, very real and very, very likely chance he starts the year on the PUP list and misses the first couple of weeks of the season. Now, it is Nick Chubb we're talking about. If anyone's going to come back from a big knee injury like he did and not miss any time the next season, it would be 24. But if Nick Chubb does miss the first month, first 5-6 weeks of the season, I personally don't want to see them run it back with Jerome Ford as the bell cow back. So let's talk about some free agent running backs they could sign to bridge the gap until Chubb returns. I'm going to rank them 5 through 1. Coming in at number 5, I've got A.J. Dillon from the Green Bay Packers. So A.J. Dillon, a 2020 second-round pick out of Boston College. He's going to turn 26 years old in May. He had a lot of wear and tear at Chestnut Hill with the Eagles, but then once he got to the Packers and he joined Aaron Jones, he didn't get a whole lot of touches, so he doesn't have too much tread on his tires. Now, the projected contract I came up with is a 2-year, $6 million deal. I know that's not a lot of money because I frankly don't think it's going to cost a lot of money to get a backup running back like A.J. Dillon. Now, he doesn't have a ton of starting experience, 4 years in the frozen tundra. He started 11 games whenever Aaron Jones was hurt, but he is coming off a career rushing, or has a career rushing average of 4.1, but he's coming off a career low 3.4 yards a carry. When he got some of his most work in 2023, 178 carries for 613 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, A.J. Dillon is a violent runner, similar to Nick Chubb, where he's got ginormous thighs and hamstrings, and he is looking to run people over. He doesn't have maybe the best receiving abilities, but he definitely has some upside to his game as a very violent and strong runner. Now, before we talk more about Dillon and other running backs the Browns could sign, name a random Browns running back. Because if A.J. Dillon comes to Cleveland, it's not going to get more random than that. So I want the most random running back you can think of. No Nick Chubb allowed. It's got to be random. Moving on to free agent target number 4, Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler is an interesting back because he should be higher than 4, right? He's been one of the best all-around dual-threat running backs in our game the last 3, 4, 5 seasons. However, he had a really bad 2023 year. Now, the former UDFA out of Western State in Colorado is going to turn 29 years old in May. So Father Time is already catching up to him, and it may take a bigger toll on him in 2023. Now, I think he could get a 2-year, $10 million contract. That's an average of $5 million a season, but he is coming off a career-low 3.5 yards per carry. When you look at what his numbers were last year compared to the previous seasons, I mean, look at the dramatic decline between his rushing and receiving yards in 2022 to just 1 year later in 2023. Goes from having 38 touchdowns the 2 prior seasons combined to 6 in 2023. Now, the big scary number is actually not his average, I would say, in this case. I think it's the age. He's going to turn 29 in May. So I did some digging. And what I found was since 2020, which is not a huge sample size, but you take the last 3 years, here are all the running backs that were 29 years or older and average 4+ yards a carry. Raheem Mostert did it twice for the Miami Dolphins. Cordell Patterson did it for the Falcons. Latavius Murray is on this sheet a bunch. Devontae Freeman did it with the Ravens. Derrick Henry last year, but he was at 4.2 yards a carry. So it's not a very long list of running backs. There's only 9 of them. Again, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 4 seasons, averaging over 4 yards a pop, which I think is a good Mendoza line for running backs that were over the age of 29 years old. And then I went back a little bit further, and I found the best 4 running backs since 2010 that were 29 years or older. And here were their numbers. Fred Jackson for the Bills back in 2011, he averaged 5.5 yards a pop off 170 carries. Mark Ingram for the Ravens, he averaged 5 yards a carry, 202 carries. Justin Forsett also with Baltimore, 5 yards a pop, 171 carries. And then we just looked at Raheem Mostert, 4.9 yards a carry in 2022 off 181 touches. So what you might notice here is none of these guys were clear-cut, dominant bell cow backs, right? They all seem to share touches with someone else at a much more generous rate than we're seeing for dominant running backs in the NFL. So it got me thinking, Austin Eckler might look pretty washed. But I think Austin Eckler with a lighter workload, where he splits touches a little bit with Jerome Ford to begin the year, and then splits touches with Nick Chubb to end the season, he could be a very nice complementary back that isn't forced to have as much touch as he had in LA. And if you save him a little bit and he's not going through so much contact and taking on so many tackles and hits, he might be able to get a second wind, if you will, when he comes over to Cleveland for the last few years of his NFL career. So just keep an eye on Austin Eckler. Before we get on to the rest of today's show, I do want to share with you guys some awesome information about our sponsor today, which is Prize Picks. Now, if you're like, Petey, I have no idea what Prize Picks is, you're in luck. I'm going to tell you all about it. It's daily fantasy made easy. All you do is pick 2 to 6 players and then choose more or less on their projected stats. Now, we have no football to talk about here, but what we do have is another MLB season around the corner. So get with Prize Picks today, and you can do some season-long stat projections. I'm just taking the more on all these bad boys. And all of a sudden, I have an entire summer just to kind of keep tabs, keep checking in on some of the players for the Braves and for the Dodgers to see how they're doing throughout the year. And who knows, by September, might be a home run or 2 away from having this bad boy hit. So get started with Prize Picks today. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS. One thing I also like about that baseball selection is that it's tough to watch baseball for 162 games, but with Prize Picks, you can stay locked in for a little bit longer since you got some money to gain out of this bad boy. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Moving on to number 3 on my free agent running back targets list, I'm going to go with Zach Moss out of the Indianapolis Colts. Now, the former third-round pick out of Utah started his career in Buffalo. Then he got traded for Nyheim Hines with the Colts 2 seasons ago. And going to turn 27 years old in December. I think he's going to get a 2-year, $6 million contract, which I understand, again, this is the running back market. They're not going to get a whole lot of money altogether. But when he was the starter, when Jonathan Taylor was down for the early stretch of the 2023 season, he put up some phenomenal numbers, right? 96 carries, 466 yards, 4 touchdowns. He was a waiver wire god. But Zach Moss, throughout his career, has not been consistent, right? He wasn't what the Bills were hoping, which was he would be the future star running back of that Josh Allen-led offense. He does have some familiarity with Ken Dorsey, so that could definitely work in his favor if Ken Dorsey feels like he'd be a good fit for what they want to do offensively. And I think this could be a perfect bridge until Nick Chubb returns, right? Zach Moss is not too old, right? It's like Goldilocks here. Not too old. Going to turn 27 in December, so he'll enter the year 26. When he was a starter last year, when Jonathan Taylor was down, he excelled as he got more carries. And he's also not too expensive. So we are checking a lot of boxes here because you're not getting yourself into a long-term commitment with any running back right now. 2 years, $6 million. You can get out of it after 1 year if you really wanted to. And if you need to start for the first month and a half of the year until Nick Chubb returns, We saw him do a very good job of that last year in Indianapolis. Now, before we get to the next two running backs on my list, reminder to subscribe to the channel because we have free daily videos, the latest news and rumors. Free agency buzz and trade rumors are going to start heating up as we get closer to the start of NFL free agency. And we are almost at 34,000 subscribers. So help us reach our next little baby milestone until we get to the big 4-0 here on the channel. Coming in at number 2, I've got DeAndre Swift from the Philadelphia Eagles. So some background information on DeAndre Swift. Second-round pick by the Lions in 2020 out of UGA, and then he gets traded to the Eagles during the draft last year. He's got a lot of youth on his side. He turned 25 years old just last month, so he's got plenty of years ahead of him. He also comes off a career-high rushing yard season, but I do think he's going to cost you a bit more as he is younger and comes off a very impactful season. I think it's a 3-year, $18 million contract. That is an average of $6 million a season. An investment like this is more of a sign of we're not confident Nick Chubb is going to play a lot in 2024, and if he does, we're not confident he's going to be close to 100% even when he does come back. Because very often we have seen running backs come back from major injuries, and they still don't look even close to 100% for a handful of weeks. So DeAndre Swift is a much more serious investment into the running back room if the Browns feel like, hey, Chubb's not going to be ready for September, October, and possibly November. Let's not mess around here. Let's go get a bona fide starting running back like DeAndre Swift. And if we get Chubb back for December in a playoff push, awesome. We'll take it. But unlike the first three, this is not a placeholder signing. This is a major addition to the offense and someone you've got big plans for 2024, 2025, and maybe even into 2026. So this would be a big-name running back to swing at in my eyes. Should Cleveland swing big? Or should they take, a little infield single? Just go get Zach Moss as a bridge for the first month and wait till Nick Chubb returns? Or, hey, Nick Chubb got ACL surgery in November last year. You should not hold your breath on him coming back in September or October. You should go find a new starting running back. And when Chubb comes back, awesome. The job can be his, and they can split carries and balance the workload, but let's not mess around here and act like Nick Chubb's going to be 100% by Halloween or anywhere before that. With all that being said, let's get into my number 1 free agent running back target, which is Tony Pollard from the Dallas Cowboys. I like Tony Pollard. He was definitely a fantasy football bust last season, but the former 2019 4th-round pick out of Memphis still has some youth on his side. He turns 27 years old in April. I think he could get a 2-year, $12 million contract because he is coming off career lows in rushing and receiving average, which means he's not going to have maybe as big of a market as he could have had he not been franchise tagged last year and truly got to be a free agent in 2023. But when you look at the last 2 seasons, like 2022, breakout year for him, right? 1,000 yards, average 5.2 yards a pop. And then the following year, he plays 1 more game. He has 2 fewer yards, and he has about 60 more carries. That resulted in him dropping his average to 3.9 yards. I'm willing to bet on Tony Pollard to the tune of 2 years, $12 million, 2 years, $10 million, somewhere in that range, that Pollard, who did suffer a broken ankle at the end of the 2022 regular season, remember in the playoff game against the 49ers? So he came into the 2023 offseason recovering from a broken ankle. And as a running back, that's a big injury to go through. Got off to a slow start. Dallas turned into a pass-happy offense. They had a lot of success by feeding the football to CeeDee Lamb. And Tony Pollard got kicked to the curb a little bit. But now, fast forward, Tony Pollard's an extra year removed from that fractured ankle injury. He's no longer going to be looked at as the premier back, but he could split carries with Jerome Ford for the first half of the year and split carries until Nick Chubb, or once Nick Chubb returns. And we saw Tony Pollard do such a great job in that role with Ezekiel Elliott. So I'm not signing Tony Pollard to be this team's number 1 workhorse back like he was supposed to be for Dallas last year. I'm signing him to go back to what he did so well in Dallas, which was split touches with Zeke. And this time, it's splitting touches with Nick Chubb when Chubb returns. So Those are my top 5 running backs that I would like to see the Browns pursue in free agency. I do have an off-the-wall question before we get on out of here. We're filming today's video during our live show, which airs every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. And there's a pretty good chance that as the time you guys are watching this right now, I am in Florida on a bachelor party trip. So off-the-wall question, best place for a bachelor party? Let me know down below in the comment section. Not my bachelor party, someone else's. All right, Trizzy Trace, which card do you want to go with?
You're talking about bachelor party.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with the club, the 10 of clubs. So you like to see 10s at the club.
I like that. I'm going to go with a king of clubs. For the same logic, but king for the boys.
Hey, for the boys.
Boys.
I love it.
We had the club part right.
Really?
5 of clubs.
Oh.
5 of clubs. All right, that will do it for us on today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Always appreciate those of you that take time out of your day to come hang out with us. We're going to sign off and see you all later. Best place for a bachelor party. What are we thinking?
I did Scottsdale, Arizona. That one was
I haven't
fun.
been to Scottsdale at all.
It was my first time. A lot of good golf, some fun restaurants and bars and stuff out there.
Orrin Smith just put 5 of clubs. Was it in time? I don't know. Could be.
Cool guy's calling Orrin out.
Cool guy says no way. Orrin was so late. Josh says New Orleans.
Hard to beat that one.
Oh, the first bachelor party I ever went on was in New Orleans.
Oh,
it was a great time.
One.
It was an awesome time. Definitely an experience. Josh says New Orleans. Orrin says strip club. I've never heard of Strip Club USA. Doesn't sound like a city.
Been there either.
No, haven't been there.
No.
I'm in a loving relationship, so doesn't seem like anywhere I'd ever want to go anyway. Best place. Okay. Cool guy. What's the matter? Cool guy's getting worked up in the chat. I have no idea. Vegas. Yeah, I actually have never been to Las Vegas, and that's very surprising.
I haven't either.
It hasn't happened. It's kind of like Steve Carell and 40-Year-Old Virgin. It just didn't happen, and then I was like, all right, stop trying.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the boat of I want to wait to go until I know I can ball out and spend
I
as much money as possible.
I do not want to be poor at Las Vegas.
No, I don't want to have my hands in handcuffs out there.
Yeah.
I want to be able to have some fun and do whatever I want out there.
Josh says Miami. Orrin says Hawaii. Hawaii's a better honeymoon spot, I feel like. I don't know about bachelor party.
Hot take, a cruise or an all-inclusive also could be a good one for a bachelor party.
I do like that. I love cruises so much that going on a 3-day cruise would be so sad because the moment you get on the ship, you're like, we're getting off so soon, and I don't want to leave.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You go to Las Vegas, you're like, 3 days is plenty.
Yeah, you do New Orleans, Las Vegas. Yeah. 36 hours, you're like, all right, get me out.
All right, mailbag coming up next on the show. Get those questions in right now, #Browns, or Super Chat if you have a burning question you want to ask and guarantee it gets on screen. Super Chat, and we guarantee to include it during our mailbag. Otherwise, producer Trace, he just picks his favorite questions, and you're at the mercy of Trizzy Trace. So, we got a mailbag next. I got Lil Beam asking some questions. Everyone get in the chat. Don't be afraid. #Browns. Anything you've got on the top of your mind right now, let me know what you're thinking. Let me know when you think we are ready, Mr. Gerard. All right, are we ready? All right. #Browns one more time or Super Chat. All the Super Chats that we got that were not questions, we'll just include at the end of the mailbag if they're just Super Chats for Super Chats. All right, are we ready? Here we go. Mailbag time here on the Cleveland Browns Report. Matthew Peterson answering questions during our live show, which aired on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. So our first question comes in from Magic Man. Any chance the Browns sign Christian Wilkins? Any chance? Yes. Likely? No. Christian Wilkins is going to be a heavily sought-after player. I think the Dolphins could explore applying the franchise tag to him. He comes off a dominant season with Miami, 9 sacks, 10 tackles for loss. He has truly become one of the best interior defensive linemen in football. And I think Cleveland made their splash interior defensive lineman signing last year with Dalvin Tomlinson. I don't expect him to spend the same amount of money they spent on Dalvin Tomlinson for another interior defensive lineman. They had a lot of success last year by going the more economical route, by holding on to Jordan Elliott, and then also signing Shelby Harris and Maurice Hurst and drafting Siaki Ika. I mean, Ika was a non-factor, but the other three guys, they were part of a very good and deep interior defensive line rotation. I don't think Andrew Berry is going to feel the pressure to go out and sign a big-name guy when he got great production out of cheap one-year contracts from Mo Hurst and Shelby Harris. He may just re-sign one of them to another 1 year, $3 to $5 million contract. So I would not put your eggs in the Christian Wilkins basket. But let me know, should the Browns sign Christian Wilkins? If you were calling the shots, would you invest that much into the interior defensive line? I think we're talking about paying him between $15 to $18 million. Like, he's going to get a good payday. And I don't think that's where the Browns want to put their resources back-to-back off seasons. Ryan Chowdhury, what's going on, dude? Mike Evans, no matter what. I'm on board. Every single day, I warm up to Mike Evans coming to the Browns more and more and more. And I started in a spot where I was pretty interested in signing Mike Evans to begin with. Now I'm thinking how special this offense would be with Amari Cooper, David Njoku, when Nick Chubb returns, and Deshaun Watson. Like, those three wideouts or targets for him, Cooper, Njoku, and Mike Evans, all similar-ish style of receivers, but also, very importantly, receivers that thrive under the way Deshaun Watson likes to play, which is every once in a while extend plays and be a bit of a magician and then just say, F it, I'm chucking it up and I hope you come down with it. Mike Evans, he's one of the best in the biz at coming down with the football. So I'm all in on signing Mike Evans. Of course, he's going to have a heavy price tag, and maybe the Browns get priced out of that a little bit, but this is definitely a name to keep an eye on. Joshua Miller, Bobby Wagner to the Browns is something I've heard more than once. What do you think? I'm interested in Bobby Wagner. I'm interested in adding a veteran middle linebacker. I like Anthony Walker a lot, and I've said this before, and I'll repeat myself again. This defense is better with than without Anthony Walker. The issue is 3 years in Cleveland, all 3 seasons, had basically season-ending injuries or missed a lot of time. As a result, I don't think the Browns should go into 2024 believing Anthony Walker in his 4th year at the Browns is going to come out and play 16 or 17 games. So they'd be a little bit foolish to continue to make, I wouldn't say the same mistake, but to continue to believe that Anthony Walker, and it's not his own fault, but injuries suck and they have plagued his career so far in Cleveland. I think they should go a different direction at middle linebacker, like a Bobby Wagner. I really like Levante David from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but if Bobby Wagner wants to come play in Cleveland, and we've had another former Seattle Seahawk linebacker come to the Browns, so why not one more from the Legion of Boom? Cool guy called Zone. I have a video idea. I'm interested. You should give candidates who the Browns might/will cut and some who deserve/will get extensions. What do you think about that? We have done cut candidates before. It's been a little while, so I can definitely re-hit that topic as we get closer to free agency. As for extensions, we can look into that. The Browns have already extended a lot of their key players, but next up is JOK. So we'll talk about that in another video. I like the idea, cool guy. I also love Game Time. If you are looking to save some money on tickets to the next local sporting event you plan on attending, or a concert, or a comedy show, whatever it is, get started with Game Time today. What I love most about Game Time, or one of the things I love most about Game Time, is the ability to get a view of your seat before you purchase your ticket. That way you don't show up to the stadium or the arena and be completely blindsided that you're sitting up in the bleachers or that you're in the nosebleeds and you had no idea. No, with Game Time, you get an awesome bird's eye view of your seat before you purchase your tickets. So download the Game Time app, and once you do that, redeem code BROWNSCHAT for $20 off. $20 off your first purchase, which means Game Time is basically spotting you your first run to the concession stand or parking. So use Game Time today. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Shout out to Game Time for supporting the Cleveland Browns Report. Tim Green, what's going on, dude? T. Higgins, 26 years old, I think he's saying, 573 yards, 5 touchdowns. Or Michael Pittman, 27, 990 yards and 4 touchdowns. Who do you pick in free agency? Both were at $2.2 million. Okay, I'm a little bit confused on the last part in terms of both were at $2.2 million. But I'm picking T. Higgins over Michael Pittman. Now, I will say I think T. Higgins is going to get franchise tag. And maybe he plays on the franchise tag. Maybe they do a tag and trade. But I don't think T. Higgins sees the open market. Michael Pittman, on the other hand, The Indianapolis Colts, historically, have never paid wide receivers big money. I mean, just think about the last 10 years or so. Can you think of Indianapolis in free agency signing a receiver to a 4-year, $60 million contract? So if Michael Pittman gets to the open market and he gets a big contract offer from someone else, don't be surprised if Indy goes, we're going to let him walk and we're going to draft his replacement this year because we found him in the second round and we can find someone else in this year's second round. So I think if you're looking for what's more likely to come to Cleveland, I think it would be Michael Pittman. Nicholas with a $10 super chat. No one wanted to listen to me when I was clamoring for Tank Dell. Listen to me now. All right, I'm listening, dude. The Browns can't leave the draft without Javon Baker. Not saying he needs to go with the second, but we need him. I love this dude already. I mean, no one was listening to me when I said Tank Dell. All right, Javon Baker, you are a Cleveland Brown. Lil Beam, next one up. This is not just for me, but all the fans of this channel. If Mike Evans comes to Cleveland, you need to buy his Browns jersey and wear it on the Week 1 watch party. You up for that? I'm in. Say less. If Mike Evans, I will add, I'm going to do it anyway, but if I could just take the mic for a moment, for a little bit longer. When I purchase jerseys, I feel like the number that the player wears is a big factor into whether or not I want to get that jersey, because then I'm wearing that number. And I've got pretty strong feelings about player number decisions, and I hate the number 13. So if he comes to Cleveland and wears 13, I'll get the jersey, but I'll be like, I wish it wasn't 13, because I want to wear the number of a jersey that I would wear if I played in the league. So 13 is my least favorite number, but if Mike Evans comes to Cleveland, Lil Beam, I'm getting the jersey. Don't worry. Joshua Miller, what does an extension for JOK look like? Great question, Josh. Great question. Josh always asking great questions. I think JOK could get a contract extension of 3 years. I think a 3-year, $35 million. That's a little over $10 million a season. I mean, Grant Delpit just got, what was Grant Delpit's extension? That would not serve as a great baseline, but we'll kind of see what Andrew Berry was working with. 3 years, $36 million. So I think Delpit is a good-ish measuring stick for what could we see JOK get? 3 years, $34 million, right? That's about $11.5 million a season. I think that's a good idea. 3 years, $34 million. Chaz Michaels, what do you think about trading for Khalil Mack? I like the idea of trading for Khalil Mack, but that's the key word, the idea, right? I do think Khalil Mack has some good football still in him. He comes off, I mean, this is kind of dumb of me to say, after he had a 17-sack season. Now, he also had 6 sacks in one game against Aiden O'Connell and the Raiders, but still, Khalil Mack had a huge bounce-back year after 2 seasons in Chicago at the end where he was missing some time or maybe not completely as productive as he once was to start his career off with the Bears and before that with the Raiders. But if the Chargers are entering a bit of a fire sale mode because they are over the cap and they need to trim some fat, they traded for Khalil Mack for a second rounder. If they want to give Khalil Mack to the Browns for a third and like a fifth or something, tell me you would not be excited about that. Khalil Mack and Myles Garrett on the same defensive line. Moving on from a day 2 pick when you only have 2 picks in the first 2 days of the draft would definitely sting. But, I mean, the Browns got Alex Wright in the 3rd round. He wasn't productive at all his rookie year. If you are looking for guys to be productive in 2024, Khalil Mack's going to do a whole lot more than most likely any 3rd round pick would. So, 3rd rounder for Khalil Mack, I'm in, dude. Would you trade for Khalil Mack? Let me know. Trade or pass. Get in the comment section. The only hesitation is at some point you got to have a good farm system because you can't rely on building a roster every single year through trades. And you need some of those day 2 picks to hit. So you have guys on rookie contracts for more than just 1 year. But the Browns, I feel like, are so all in on 2024, similar to what they were in 2023 when they traded for Zadarius Smith. They may very well do a very similar trade in 2024. Nicholas, yet again, what's going on, dude? With a draft class as good as this for wide receiver, is dumb to overpay for a free agent. I think you can get a first-round production as late as the 5th round. This draft class in general, Nicholas, is loaded at quarterback and wide receiver and offensive tackle. 3 cornerstone pieces. So it is lacking in some other spots, but you're spot on that this is a very, very good wide receiver class that, you take this wide receiver class and you dump it in another year, and there are guys who are going to go round 2 that would have gone round 1 in previous years. Last year's wide receiver class wasn't that great. Wasn't Quentin Johnson the first one to be selected as a wide receiver? And look how that turned out for the Chargers. So would it be dumb? I don't know if it'd be dumb, depending on the wide receiver you're overpaying. I don't think Mike Evans would be an overpay, right? But I think maybe Michael Pittman on a 4-year, $70 million contract, all right, I could probably live with going with a Troy Franklin in round 2 out of Oregon for 73 times less than what you're giving Michael Pittman. But again, it's how you value the 2024 impact versus the long term. Are you looking for guys that can come in and help squeeze out a Super Bowl in 2024? Or are you planting seeds for 2025, 2026, and 2027? How do you want to balance the two, right? That's really what it comes down to. And you got to have some level of balance, but I think there is a much bigger weight being placed on the what's best for 2024 compared to what can we do to maximize our 2025 and 2026 efforts. Plus, the Browns get back in the first round of 2025. So they may feel like, while we definitely don't have a lot of great homegrown talent growing at some spots because we haven't had a lot of early draft picks, we're going to get back in the first round in 2025 so we can hopefully make up for that next year. Oren, what's going on, dude? Do you think we could get a wide receiver like Mike Williams in free agency? Oren, Mike Williams is under contract, but I could see the Chargers moving on from him. And if they move on from him, I could see the Browns having some interest in Mike Williams. They were, if I remember correctly, interested in Mike Williams before he got extended by the Chargers, or at least I was interested in Mike Williams. However, he does come off an ACL tear, and he has missed some time throughout his career due to injuries, so the medicals we'll have to check out, but I could see the Browns having interest in a receiver like Mike Williams because he is that big body, go up and climb a tree type of wideout that thrives with a quarterback like Deshaun Watson. All right, let's wrap up the show by talking about card time. Trace, what are you thinking?
I'm going to get weird. Ace of spades.
Ace of spades, okay. How about 10 of hearts?
I like it.
It was close. 9 of clubs.
Ooh.
9 of clubs. All right, that will do it for us on our mailbag today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you all later. Would you trade for Khalil Mack? Let me know, trade or pass. I feel like with trades like this, when you got to take into account, do you want to give up a draft pick for them? I like to have the test of, if I close my eyes and picture, I get the Adam Schefter notification. The Browns have traded for Khalil Mack. What is my reaction going to be? It's not going to be, It's going to be, let's go. We just got Khalil Mack. Tell me that wouldn't be a very similar reaction for all of you watching right now.
Or if it is Mother F, it'll be Mother F, heck yeah, instead of Mother F, heck no.
Now, if they gave up a second rounder for him, well, I'll be a little peeved-ish since he's older than he was 2 years ago when he got traded for a second rounder to the Bears, but a third, man, I'd be interested. He was drafted by the Raiders 4th overall, traded to the Bears. No, traded to the Chargers. Yep. Traded to the Chargers. All right. Should we throw our Super Chat menu up one more time? We're at $49.98. For my kind of minor OCD self, can we at least get like a... Oh, boom. I was about to say, get a Super Chat just to get over 50. And then Joshua Miller, right on cue. Here is our Super Chat menu. And I got to add Nicholas. Did Nicholas send a... Okay, so Nicholas also got added for the Browns Nick Chubb autograph helmet. We're going to do that next Tuesday. So make sure you tune in, Nicholas, and everyone else. And I got... Can you throw up Nicholas's Super Chat so I can... Because he got a bit of a tough last name. Nicholas... Nicholas Achlidis? No, that just sounds wrong. Achlidis? Achlidis? Nicholas Achlidis. That sounds wrong, though. Maybe it's not. And if it is right, I'm sorry. Nick, adding you to the board. There you go, bud. Appreciate you. I know you've been a longtime viewer of the channel. One of the first super chatters on a live show almost 2 years ago, I think. Josh, what's going on? Our top two needs, defensive tackle and wide receiver, are the same this year as they were last year. Is anyone at fault for that? If anyone? Fair point that you raise. I don't know if anyone's at fault because the Browns got good production out of their DTs last year. Andrew Berry corrected what he thought he could kind of overlook early on in his GM career, which was, hey, teams aren't going to run the ball as much as they used to. We don't have to have a great interior defensive line. As long as we're not like the worst or the second worst DT group, we can tread water. The issue is the Browns were the worst defensive tackle group in the NFL 2 years ago. So he went out and he spent a little bit more money on a guy like Dalvin Tomlinson. And then for shits and giggles, he brings on Shelby Harris in training camp. So I don't think anyone's at fault because, yes, they signed a couple or two guys to one-year contracts, and Jordan Elliott coincidentally heads to free agency at the end of his 4-year deal. If you want to put some blame somewhere, I think wide receiver could be somewhere, or it could be a group open for discussion. Like Elijah Moore probably didn't pan out as the Browns would have hoped for in his first season. He still has one more year left on his rookie contract, but man, if I had a time machine and I told Andrew Berry last March when they traded for Elijah Moore, here are his 2023 stats, he might not make that trade. Now, the Cedric Tillman draft pick and the David Bell draft pick, 2 third-round picks, too early to grade Cedric Tillman in my eyes, but not a whole lot of production out of either guy so far. So I think there is some blame to be said about third-round wide receiver picks maybe not being the most impactful, and the Elijah Moore trade not being an absolute home run and so far just being a single. But DT, I'm not too upset with the way the Browns approach defensive tackle, and I think they'll do a similar approach next year, and they'll have similar results. Josh, appreciate you as always, dude. Super chat menu for anyone who is watching right now that would like to either enter the mix for an autographed Nick Chubb Browns helmet. $50 super chat gets you entered into a raffle with Jeremy Stallman for this Browns Report autographed football. I'll sign it right there, and then we'll mail it to the winner. We're going to do all these at the end of the month, which is next Tuesday, our final show in the month of February. So make sure to tune in next Tuesday to see if you win either the autographed Nick Chubb helmet or the Cleveland Browns Report autographed football by yours truly. So, as always, thank you so much to everyone that super chats, that likes the video, that comments, that shares, all that great stuff. I know it might not seem like a big deal, and you guys go on with your lives, and you're like, what does it mean to like a video? How's that a big deal? I'm telling you guys, you have no idea how one like might not seem like a big deal, but when everyone does it, really helps the channel grow, and it helps me get more studio space so I can give you guys more content. All right. It is the end indeed. Closing time, Mr. Cool Guy. Appreciate you guys. I'll end with Cool Guy's question here. What do you think of drafting a guard in order to replace Joel Bitonio? I don't think you're replacing Joel Bitonio. Maybe you're replacing Wyatt Teller. But Joel Bitonio, been on this team since 2014. He's entering what would be, year 10, year 11, whatever the math is. I still feel like he can play at a high level for another 2 to 3 seasons. So I think you're still 2 years early on replacing Joel Bitonio. His contract is ending soon, but I could see the Browns tacking on another year or two. I think you might see the Browns target interior offensive line in the 2025 NFL draft. I think they're pretty confident about Bitonio and Teller for 2024. Plus, interior offensive linemen, you can kind of plug into a lineup, and as a rookie, they can do better in that spot than other rookies can because a guard is sandwiched between a tackle and a center. So if a rookie guard is in between Ethan Posick and Duwan Jones, who at that point will be 2 or 3 years into his career, and Ethan Posick 7 or 8 years into his career, they could help that rookie guard out because they're working right next to him. All right, that will do it for us on today's show. Thank you guys so much. Billy, I love you more. Have a good rest of your Tuesday, and we will see you all later.